Let's be brutally honest right now. That's a big question.
I'm looking for someone who doesn't want to go to base camp, but they want to go to the very top.
Whether it's here, India, New York.
Civilization was born at happy hour.
That's what wins. That's what stands out. That's what people are interested in. That's what I want to know. The Hospopreneurs Podcast with James Henderson.
Hello and welcome to the Hospopreneurs Podcast. Martin Salter is the co-founder and CEO of social impact enterprise WOSUP, short for War on Single-Use Plastic, a business replacing single-use plastic cups in large-scale sport and entertainment venues with reusable and infinitely recyclable aluminium cups. Martin's media and advertising career has early roots in hospitality with a Swiss hotel management diploma, learnings from which he's carried across his career and personal life. Hello and welcome to the show, Marty.
Thanks, James. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And you've got a big week. I know that you've got a few big meetings lined up in Melbourne. Thank you for joining us in Melbourne. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Absolutely fine.
I'm going to crack straight into the episode. As you know, the first question that I like to ask is a crazy hospitality story or exceptional hospitality experience. I'd love to know what you have for the show today.
Well, I did a hospitality Swiss hotel diploma at the Blue Mountains International Hotel Management School. I was part of the first group through that school, which has now become quite a big hospitality entry for a lot of staff and people for careers. And in the first year, you have to do a 6-month industry placement. We had a property in Berrima in New South Wales, and so I went to Mount Broughton to become a bar manager there. And my experience in hospitality was pretty small. I just had some experience, obviously, at the school. And I was given the job of looking after a table which a bride and groom and then the whole bridal party had just come in and they were having their reception. And so they were a bit short of staff. So being the bar manager, I got an order for 12 glasses of port. And, you know, the glasses of port are quite small. Mm-hmm. And I got this big tray. And I thought, well, I can save time by putting all the 12 glasses of port on this one tray. Mm-hmm. And I'll go out to the table and I'll just pop them down. Mm-hmm. And I thought, look, I should probably go to the bride and the groom first and give them their port first.
Okay. I think I see where this is going.
Off I go. And I have a habit, sometimes when I get nervous, I get a bit shaky. I can't play 2-up because of it. And so I went out there with this big tray and I really was trying to be too efficient. And I went out there and I started putting the glasses of port down on the table. And what I realised was that around the table, everyone was looking in absolute shock and horror. And I thought, well, what's happened? And then I realised that my hand had gone like this and the port, 11 glasses of port, had gone all over the bride. And what was,
wow.
I shouldn't laugh, it's terrible.
In retrospect, maybe, but gee.
What had happened was that she completely turned purple.
Oh.
And I felt so bad about that ever since. That was a very difficult situation, but
that is hard.
I don't think they quite gave you enough experience after first year in school to kind of work out how to handle that situation after you've ruined a bride's wedding day with being covered in port.
We hear stories about, people who've spilled a wine at a table. And I think I might have had one story like that in the past, but I've never had someone say that they've done it at a wedding on the bride.
It was bad.
That's pretty much as bad as that gets.
I still turned up. I kept my job, but they decided after that I was best really just behind the bar.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we of agreed that was probably my best place in the hotel. Yeah.
Yeah. But so from there, how did you then apply those hospitality learnings, those hospitality skills in your career?
Well, it's quite interesting. I think doing that course really helped me learn how to deal with people. I think one of the major takeouts of hospitality is that you really have to learn how to manage all sorts of personalities and people from all different backgrounds and environments. And hospitality is a great learner of that. I worked as a night manager in a hotel in King's Cross, and the hotel doesn't exist anymore, but that was on Greenough Avenue. And I had experiences where TVs were being taken out of the rooms downstairs. And there were always rooms that we never gave to people because they were so dodgy at the front office. We never used to give them. But it turned out that the police one day came to the front door and, it was 3 a.m. King's Cross is, back in those days, King's Cross was still fairly interesting place. And being a night manager there at, my tender age of like 21 was, it got to be quite scary. I get people banging on the door and everything. But the cops came and they came to interview me. And I said, well, what's wrong? And they said, well, there's been reports of people stealing televisions out of the hotel. And I said, I didn't know about that. They actually thought I'd had something to do with it. I said, I have no idea. So we went down and apparently there was a guy that was living in the room that none of the front office staff or the hotel staff had actually seen because we never rented out that room because it was so bad, that he'd just been going around the hotel checking, empty rooms, just slowly but surely stealing TVs from the rooms and handing them out the window to his mate, who would then run off through sort of Potts Point and down into Woolloomooloo with the TVs.
How long did he get away with that for?
It was going on for like 2 months.
Wow.
So,
that's crazy. And no one caught him.
It's quite funny. But I mean, look, sorry, I've given you 2 stories.
2 stories is fine.
I think hospitality is great. And, after that, I just loved cooking food. Food's a passion. Food's been a big part of my family. I've got my cousins are Greek. We're not Greek, but my cousins are. And so always through my father's family, my mother's family, my mum's a fabulous cook. She did cordon bleu in the 60s.
Yeah.
We've always grown up to love food. And so one of the reasons why I did the Swiss hotel management course was to get some form of professional training, and I worked with some great chefs, and they really gave me the skills and really helped me understand the love of food and how food is so creative and brings back memories of past, like different foods and I can look at a plate of something that will take me back to the 70s, or I'm showing my age, but take me back to the 70s or the 80s, or, even looking at figs and spatchcock, that was a huge dish in the early 90s with honey. You can kind of look at this kind of evolution of how hospitality grows with the changes of lifestyle and tastes. And it's a very interesting industry to be involved in.
Very. So talk me through then how you came to do what it is that you're doing now. We're talking a number of years, and a career that's taken you to some very different places. Talk me through then how you found yourself working in the business that you are.
It's a great question. And I think it probably started long ago when I started a little catering business, probably a little bit before its time, but I would go around to people's houses and cook dinner parties. I did this for a while because I thought I had a love of media and I really wanted to start Australia's first men's fashion magazine, which is basically what I did. And I launched it at the same time as another magazine called Men's Health. And I actually did it in Melbourne in 93. It was called Metropolitan Style. But while I was researching that business and my first sort of entrepreneurial adventure, I did another entrepreneurial venture and was going around to people's houses cooking for them. And it was, that was great fun. I actually did it. I did it on my own. And then for a while there, I had a friend helping me out. She'd go out and service again because probably that wasn't my skill set. I was better in the kitchen. But, that was great fun. I did that for about a year. But then, doing that when you're so young, and you're seeing all your mates go out on a Friday, Saturday night, which was inevitably when I would do the work, I was kind of missing out a bit on the social aspects of being that young, and I kind of stopped doing that and I eventually launched the magazine in 93. That finished, unfortunately, got to some level of success, but, if crowdfunding and things were around back then, I probably would have ended up being all right. Through that, I then started working in media. And after that initial failure I had, my confidence took a hit and I went and worked in media for quite some time, and I developed a love for outdoor technology, really developing and working with startups, and startups I've always loved. So I've worked with a number of media startups also, both in radio, out of home, in-store media. and even, digital screens and office elevators. And I've had quite a varied career as far as media is concerned. And eventually when we got to finishing up at Sydney Airport, and I was there for 10 years, worked in the retail team. So I learned a lot about F&B, sort of travel retail and travel F&B, but was there mainly to commercialise digital platforms and that kind of thing and the advertising. But once I left there, my love of sport took me to a game of the Swans versus Gold Coast with my business partner, Carl Page, and we saw plastic everywhere. And WOSUP evolved from that, and it's kind of funny because it's a culmination of all my experiences and careers in hospitality, technology, media and infrastructure that have all sort of come into this one product and business that we've developed recently.
Which is probably a good opportunity to ask you what the business does. For those who don't know what the business is, tell us in your words, a short version of what the business is.
I'll try and be short. It's very hard for me to speak in short phrases about the business I'm so passionate about. But I'll do my best.
That's why I ask.
Yeah.
That's why I ask.
WOSUP stands for War on Single-Use Plastic. And effectively, we've built a business around delivering a better customer experience for people in large-scale venues. And we do that by using the cup as a mechanism to replace all plastic, but drive a value proposition for patrons while they're there by delivering a rewards platform which delivers money can't buy experiences, a link for club sponsors to people while they're in the venue, and also delivering opportunity for people to engage and have a better fan experience while they're there. It's not an easy thing replacing plastic in a venue. Like you think, and when Carl and I first embarked down this journey, we thought, there's a plastic cup. You just replace it with a different material. How hard can that be? Well, I can tell you it's very hard. And we're here 5 years later and we're still just starting to make real inroads. And it's the business is starting to get exciting. We've got some great people on board helping us.
You said that there's some difficulty in actually implementing a non-plastic system. I'm interested to know what sort of tools or infrastructure is required in practice. Because in theory, it was easy to do. But in practice, what do venues actually need to do to change the way that they're doing things?
Well, some of the challenge is ensuring that every stakeholder is in agreement to what you're doing. That's probably the biggest challenge. There tends to be about 5 stakeholders that you need approval from. As far as equipment and actual operational challenges for the venue and the caterer, it is a different process to what they're used to. I think going from even that the cup is not clear, how do you pour it and how do we make sure that patrons aren't upset by getting, for example, a short pour? So we've worked through all those solutions. Initially, we also had to work in relation with the SCG, for example. We did our first multi-pour. So we know that we've got top-up guns and we have to pour a certain way, and we worked with the team there to really work through the efficiencies of how we can always deliver a good beer. That is something else. In essence, it's really more about the training, and I think hospitality in venues has a high turnover of staff, and it's not like, James, you'll go to a bar and that bar, your local bar, has the same bar staff every Friday you go there and they get to know your name. Venues, we're talking massive scale, high turnover of staff. So what you might have taught the person last game, you're probably going to have to do it again. And there will be a gradual learned experience that will build. And then gradually all the people that actually do work within the venues will get to all of them. But there is going to be that process of ramping up the experiences that staff need.
You'd think it would be, at least in theory, and hopefully exponential as you're implementing your systems at more venues. The staff that are working at those venues learn more quickly as well.
Yes.
And then also they're using those tools more quickly.
And to be honest,
well.
it's not a difficult process to change. I mean, effectively all we're doing is, they're taught mainly with plastic, because you can see through it, to pour a beer that way. But the way we've designed our product, you just pour it that way. And you can quite clearly see.
I personally pour beers sideways anyway.
Oh, do you really?
That's how I do it.
Oh,
yeah.
Well.
That's how I've always poured beers.
There you go. You'd pour a
So that's
absolutely
good.
awesome
Perfect
WOSUP
one out
beer.
of your cups.
Yeah.
Great.
But, the thing about it is that as far as infrastructure, we do everything off-site, so washers and everything like that. And we've got various partners that we use depending on the state that we're in. We've got different objectives. There are a lot of venues that are really starting to look into this very closely and are going through formal processes. So we're part of those formal processes, and every formal process, obviously, we're a startup. Every formal process that a contract is the end goal, have developed the business in a way that we can create that scale very quickly. And it doesn't matter if we're doing a game which has got 10,000 people, James, or we've got, for example, the MCG just across the road. We could quite easily do that as well with exactly the same process. And I think to give caterers and venues confidence in your ability to deliver attendees of that size, we're talking 50,000 above, 40,000 above, is what you really need to give them, because what they don't want is a bad experience. And so we have spent probably the last 5 years really working on our operational efficiency, delivering a really great experience, working through all our kinks and ironing out all the potential issues that might be there to ensure that we scale correctly and in a way that it doesn't impact operations in venues at all. And that really is the core to our business model, is that we don't affect speed of service. We don't affect any operational procedures that they've currently got in place. We come in seamlessly. We do everything. We just provide the product. We work with the caterer on distributing the product around the venue. We take it away and it's done, and we bring it back. That's as simple. We always keep afloat in the venue.
There are a few things that I'd like to ask you, but the first is you said something in that answer that I'd just like to elaborate on, because you didn't actually say who they were, but you said there were 5 stakeholders. Who are they?
Good question. You've got the venue themselves, you've got the caterer, you've got the licensee, the police are very, very important. You've got the club mainly, and you've got the patron. And the way we communicate and get all those different stakeholders on board is very, very different. So to build a business which is going to be successful in removing plastic from venues, we need to absolutely ensure that every single one of those stakeholders receives a benefit in doing it. And it would be wonderful to think that everyone is going to do it because it's the right thing to do. But
they don't.
That's la land. You really can't. You need to develop a solution which is going to improve commercial viability of it, that's going to deliver a better customer experience, but also which is going to help them see through analytics, like what is the environmental benefit and what is the tangible results of that, and how do we then communicate that to our members? How do we communicate that to our board? And to be able to show that actually, by doing the right thing environmentally, you can make money from this. It doesn't have to be a cost. And I guess the real difference for us as a business is that it's creating a tangible commercial benefit for venues and clubs so they find it easy. It takes down it's all about removing barriers to entry, and that is absolutely the right way to be going about this.
One of the big questions that I have is really how you clean the cups. I mean, that's one of the most important things, is making sure that it's hygienic. What's the difference in the process? Because if you have a plastic cup, you just toss it out. And obviously there are reasons for not doing that, lots of them, and that's what we're talking about. But the alternative is to clean something or reprocess something or turn it into something new. So what do you do to ensure that level of hygiene as well?
I think a lot of it depends on, some venues like cleaning them themselves, and that's fine. It's all HACCP approved, so that's important. When our staff clean them, they always wear hairnets, gloves, etc. The washing process is quite simple in that we put 25 cups per tray through the machine. It gets washed at over 70 degrees and gets dried. I mean, because it's metal, it can actually get dried up to 96 degrees. So the important thing for us is to ensure that the cups come out dry, and that's really important. And we're looking at investing in massive washer, which is a winter halter machine. I mean, they cost like $150,000, so it's a significant capital outlay for the business, but they are very popular, and it is a piece of equipment that absolutely does 10,000 cups an hour. And as we grow, that's the scale that we're going to need to get to. So we basically man staff around the washers, probably 4 really we need per hour to go through that. and then they repack them into glassine paper bags. So we don't go anywhere near plastic. So they get repacked into packs of 50, put back in tubs, and then we send them back to the venue for distribution at the bars in the glassine paper bags.
Right. So just to understand the process there, you collect the cups at the end of these events, take them away, process them to ensure that they're clean.
We rinse at the venue to make sure all the beer, all the sort of the beer dregs, if you like to call them, and also the sugars come off the product as best we can. Because if you keep a cup for longer than probably 4 to 5 days, you're going to start getting issues with the product. So we always make sure that we pick the product up within 48, 72 hours and rinse them on site. So that helps us with the delivery of the washing and the health and safety.
I have personally worked at those sorts of sites with catering companies, and I've done that myself. But for those who don't know, what sort of scale are we talking about here? How many cups does a venue need? I know we're talking about stadiums of different sizes, but
every venue always asks us for too many. I'll say that. Carl has worked out a very good method of actually working out what we need. So for every 1,000 attendees, we need one bin. Okay. Now we know through our data we get back about 83% of cups. Now 60 to 65% of those are going to come in the bin and the others are going to be in the seating bowl. So what we do is we work with the venue cleaners in cleaning the bowl. And for them, it's very simple. You know, they're there to pick up plastic or cans, but all they have to do really is just pick up our cups separately and pop them in our bins. So that's what we do. And with our staff, we actually empty the bins. We've got special bags, which are biodegradable bags, that we take out. We take them to a facility in the venue where we rinse and wash, and it probably takes us about 45 minutes to clean a 20,000 seat venue at the end of the game, and about another hour and a half rinsing and making sure that the cups are okay to be put back into pallets, and they go into the pallets, and then we remove them through logistics the following day generally.
And how many people are involved in that process?
It depends on the size of the venue and how many attendees we'll have on the day, but generally we use about 5 staff a game. So for a 20,000 seat venue, we'll generally use 5 staff. Carl is always there managing, looking over that. But as we grow, obviously we're going to need more people that can help out in the supervisory way. But we have built a relationship with Clean Vibes. Andrew MacArthur is the CEO of that company and he's also a shareholder of our business. So we work quite closely with Andrew and his team. They have very, very skilled event people and staff. So we tap into Andrew's network of staff generally for event day operations and stuff that we need. And it's very much casual labour. It's unskilled and casual. So it's not like we have permanent staff doing it. When we have an event, we'll call on Andrew's team, basically.
It seems so smart to have advertising on the cup. And before we recorded this interview, we were chatting about all sorts of things and the fact that, you know, some people might think, like many businesses, they're like, oh, I can't believe that hasn't happened previously. But you have mentioned to me that it was intuitive to have advertising on the cup. Talk to me about that part of your business.
Well, it came out of the commercial model that we've developed. A lot of businesses go through what's called a deposit return system in developing a reusable cup solution in venues and throughout Europe. It's quite prevalent. But what we needed to be able to do is subsidise the cost of our services in the venue. And we have a lot of great people on our board, but a lot of us are involved in media. And so it was a natural thing for us to just gravitate towards. And you know that a brand on a cup, when you're having that dwell time, is very, very visible. And dwell time is what creates engagement in media. And engagement is very, very important. And also large-scale distribution is also very important. So when you've got a large audience, which has got that significant dwell time, i.e. drinking beer, it might take 10, 15 minutes to drink a beer, for example, but let's hope they're taking that long to drink a beer.
An appropriate and responsible period.
Some might be, but then we get to a higher frequency of message.
It could be longer. It could be longer.
Yeah, and we'll just get more cups. But basically the message there is fantastic, and it's a really great place for a brand to associate themselves to an environmental initiative. And a lot of brands out there now are really looking seriously. They don't want to be involved in greenwashing. They don't want to be involved in what's called sport washing. They really want to be able to do something that is a tangible and validated good thing to do in sport. And sport and entertainment are one of the biggest carbon emitters in the world. And for a brand to help deliver a solution to venues and to sporting clubs, I mentioned clubs earlier, I should extrapolate that. So sporting clubs, that's really where we need to get to. And being a media person, having a brand on a cup is one thing, but you need to be then able to engage and create a viable benefit to the patron when they're there. And the best way for us to be able to do that is to deliver a link between the sponsor on the cup and the patron, because everyone at a venue has a phone and they've got a cup. Quite easily, the way we create that bridge is by a QR code. And years ago, before COVID, QR codes were dead. They weren't like media for years have been trying to get QR codes. I remember when I was at Sydney Airport, our media providers had put QR codes on the digital screens and the terminals, and there was like no uptake at all. People had no idea what QR codes were. But thanks to COVID, this is a benefit for us that's happened because of COVID. And we're talking about that previously. If it wasn't for COVID, QR codes wouldn't be ubiquitous and people wouldn't understand what to do when they see one. Everyone knows what to do when they see one. So the final piece of our puzzle from a media perspective was to create that bridge by QR code into our platform, which then delivers all the benefits. So it's a full white labelled solution for the sporting clubs, and with the Giants, we've developed that with our recent contract with the AFL team, the Giants at NG Stadium. So we're giving away tickets, we're giving away a signed jumper, and we'll expand on that and start delivering points and other benefits, which will then be redeemable in venue and outside the venue, most importantly.
Talk me through the point system, because that's the next question I have for you.
That is still in development. Like every startup, we've started with an MVP, which we launched in Queensland Country Bank Stadium in our trials up there. And then we launched version 2, which is now operational at the Giants. Version 3, which we hope to pilot next year at the Giants, because it's a significant outlay for us, is to really develop that platform even further so we can then provide that value to sporting clubs, not just here, but elsewhere. The value of a rewards platform in sport and entertainment, when you've got that period of dwell, we believe is significant.
I'd like to know what it is that you're learning about or exploring at the moment. It's a question that I ask on every episode, but I'm interested in the direction that you take it.
Right now, I'm learning mostly about financial modelling. As a startup, learning how to make the dollar last as long as possible is probably the most important thing. Runway, everyone talks about runway in startups. We've built this thing from ourselves. We've, as they say, bootstrapped this business. So that is probably the most crucial thing. Like, you want to do things, but you can't do everything at once. You need to be very disciplined and in the way we distribute funds that are in the business. So that comes from a very, very good board, and I'm really happy with the board that we've built. And so something I've really learned in the way in developing this business is not only resilience and patience. And I'm not the most patient person. I think I'm incredibly resilient, but you have to be. But sometimes I lose my patience with the speed of things going. That's why we have a great board behind us, that it's a group discussion. Like, we're all involved in it. And, we're really lucky. I sort of pinch myself every day that the former CEO of Rugby Australia, Andy Marinos, did agree to become my chairman. And I rang him after he finished up at rugby, and I thought, I'll give it a crack. Because I've met Andy and he was helping us initially with a couple of things. But I thought, he might say yes. So I rang up Andy and I said, we met out at Homebush, and I was pitching him everything. And he goes, Marty, I'd love to be involved. God, isn't that fantastic? And he's just added such a calm, disciplined, culture to our board environment that it really has become quite a benefit to the business going forward. And I can't underestimate the benefit of having a great chairman. involved in the company. And this is everything I've started to learn. And you also have to, one thing I've really learned, and it hasn't taken me long to learn this, is you have to know your skills. You got to know where you're good and where you're not good. And where you're not good as a CEO, you need to bring people in and you need to actually learn how to delegate. I'm a Virgo, and so for the non-star-minded people out there,
non-astrologists out there,
where, you know, we kind of like
you'll
doing
have to
things a
explain it to
certain
me.
way,
Yeah.
you know, and if we're not doing it, sometimes we have difficulty in letting other people do it. I think to avoid burnout, one of the things I've really had to accept is actually letting go. And we're not a big organisation at all, by the way, but even working with Andy, it's like you just have to, I just got to go, Chairman, you know, he has a lot of great ideas. And so I've just sort of let go of the reins, so to speak, as a founder. And that's always really hard to do, is to let go of your baby. But there's a lot of really good people that can take it and create value and offer help. So
where are you looking to model your growth?
So I recently came back from a holiday in Japan and I spent a bit of time in Tokyo, and my wife and my girls were busy shopping and I had a bit of time on my hands. And we went into an Adidas store. On the wall, I was quite taken aback because plastered everywhere was their sustainability objectives and mission statement. And I don't know if this is just in Japan with Adidas, or Adidas, I don't know if I ever say it correctly.
Adidas. Yeah, Adidas. I'm going to get the German wrong, but was a founder anyway.
Yeah.
But yes,
I was fascinated. I took photos of the walls in this store in Tokyo, and I think they were looking at me quite strangely because I wasn't at all interested in the shoes. I was more interested in the wall. But it was all about brands collectively doing something to improve their footprint on the globe. And global brands have a real opportunity to deliver a global message. And environmentalism is not a state-based thing. It's not a suburb-based thing. It's not even a country-based thing. It is a global problem. It doesn't matter if, as a business, Adidas becomes a partner of ours, and I would love them to because the synergies are there, because obviously they're really against ocean plastic, and they're developing shoes now which have reusable and recycled plastics in them, which is fantastic. So I would always recommend going to look at Adidas as a brand because they support those initiatives. But as far as we're concerned, and as a global brand, which, you know, we would hope to become one day like an Adidas, we have aspirations of that. Wherever you're creating benefit to the world, it's not just based on the country that you're in, because ultimately whatever we do, either as a corporation, an individual, or a global citizen, global corporate citizen, whatever you do impacts all of us. And I think where we get a bit stuck is that we think, oh, we're doing this as a country, or we're doing this, or even I'm doing something as an individual. That's enough. But we need to think more broadly than that. What are we doing? How are we impacting? And what are we doing every day as a community to improve the world? Because it's a world problem. It's not a me problem. But I'm passionate about this, and I started this because I look at my daughters, and I've got an 18-year-old daughter called Holly and a 14-year-old daughter called Hardy. I just love those girls so much. And, you know, I look at their generation coming through, and I've learned a lot from them. And, you know, the generation that became before us probably wasn't the most environmentally friendly. Let's face it, plastic was pretty much invented on their watch. So there's going to be a disconnect between the generation that came before me and the generation next that are coming after. And I see my generation as a bridge between the two. We need to use our experiences to build that bridge so then they can run with it, get the ball started. And that's where I see my help in that global problem and contributing to that global problem, is that you just got to put your money where your mouth is. And, you know, I love sport. And when Carl and I were at that game, again, there was just plastic everywhere. There wasn't even, not even recycling bins. It was just littered, crushed everywhere. And it's like, you've got like at the Swans game, you've got like 34,000 people going across, you know, you've probably got 350,000 people a year going to a Swans game in a year. It took two people to go, I've had enough of this, you know. I didn't expect it to be me. That's why I feel like I'm a little bit accidental. I think Carl and I both feel we're a bit accidental. But, you know, when we started developing and going down this path, we just didn't stop. We've been tempted to stop, and they've been really, really hard days for both of us, really hard days. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't stop because I'd have to go back and look at Holly and Heidi in the eyes and say, I've quit. And what if we're the chance to make a difference? What if WOSUP's the business that potentially can make a difference? And I suppose every founder thinks this, but what if it is? What if I stop? What happens next? And I can't look at Holly and Heidi and think that. And certainly I can't look at my wife, Amber, who has sacrificed so much over the last 5 years of our life to support me and in the endeavours and my passions. There's not many wives or partners that would ever do that. And I'm immensely lucky that she does.
Marty, on that note, I'd love to thank you so much for joining me on the program
Pleasure.
today. I have one final question, and that's, who would you like to hear on the show?
I wouldn't mind hearing a CEO from a venue, or maybe Dwayne Goodman from Gemma would be interesting. Even Justin Hemmings would be interesting, I think, or Joe, who's the CEO of Compass. I think looking at a venue group or a major venue caterer on how they see sustainability and innovation happening in the space would be very interesting for me to hear.
Thank you again. It's a pleasure to be able to sit down with you, so thank you so much.
Thanks, James.
This program was produced by H Media. We'll see you soon.